think what's going on, and keep this in perspective, because gold started going up in 1999, 2000, it was below $300 an ounce. So we're now 1,750. And so if you just go back to the beginning of this millennium, gold is beating the S&P over, that 22-year, time period, even after the recent pullback, and with the markets at the highs. But again, I think the headwind for gold right now, temporarily, is the false belief that the Fed's got it covered, that inflation is transitory, that the Fed is going to normalize interest rates and shrink its balance sheet, taper QE, do all that it's going to bring inflation back down to 2%, and it's going to do it in a way that is negative for the gold market because it's going to be higher interest rates, tighter monetary policy. I think that view is completely wrong, but that is the view that dominates the market. And so that is what is keeping the pressure on gold. At some point, that view is going to change, either because the Fed admits that it's not going to do those things, or the market figures it out on its own. But one of those two things are going to happen, and the price of gold is going to go way up. Now, what happens to the price of Bitcoin when that happens? I think Bitcoin, to the extent that it's correlated with gold, is probably a negative correlation. So if we really start to see a move up in gold, that could cause a drop in Bitcoin. But ultimately, Bitcoin's a bubble. Knowing when bubbles are going to pop for sure, it's very difficult. There's a hell of a lot of air in Bitcoin, and of course, not just Bitcoin, all these other cryptocurrencies. Ultimately, I don't think any of them have any value. I mean, to the extent that you have a cryptocurrency that's backed by something real, like if somebody issued a cryptocurrency backed by gold, then that cryptocurrency would have value. It would be worth, the gold that backed it up. But these cryptocurrencies that are popular because they have no value. That's why they can keep going up, because there's nothing stopping them from going up, because there's no value that they're tied to. They're just worth whatever some idiot is willing to pay. And, there's always a greater fool until you run out of greater fools. And then you're the greatest fool and you're left holding the bag. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of bag holders in crypto land.
Peter, when did you discover Bitcoin, and how much did you dig into it and learn about it?
Well, I discovered it. I didn't discover it. People told me about it. So it's not like I found it on my own. People said, hey, look at this thing, Bitcoin, people are buying it. Yeah, it was probably 2011. It was early days. It wasn't the very beginning. It wasn't a penny. But I think it was under $10. I can't remember for sure if it was under $1 or not. But it was under 10 for sure when I first learned about it. And I remember I liked it. I was like, but I said, well, the reason it can't work is there's nothing to stop somebody else from coming up with another cryptocurrency. And of course, that's exactly what happened. There's, as I said, over 11,000 of them. And I know that none of those currencies have any qualities that are unique that Bitcoin doesn't possess. In fact, these newer cryptocurrencies are actually better than Bitcoin as far as the ease of use or the speed of the transactions and stuff like that. They're not any better in that they have no intrinsic value, but they're better in that you can move them around easier.
But a lot of them are centralized, and they don't have that digital scarcity that Bitcoin does. So potentially,
well, some of them are, and some of them are not. There's plenty of them, and they're decentralized, right? Bitcoin's not the only one. There's different kinds. You got proof of work, you got proof of stake. Whatever. But conceptually, it's the same thing. It's just this digital token, because it's not really a currency. But I didn't think it could work as a store of value. I didn't think it would work as a unit of account. I did believe early on that it could be a medium of exchange, mainly in the black market. I saw the appeal early on. That a lot of that appeal is being lost now by regulation. But back then, when I first heard about it, yeah, you want to buy something and you don't want anyone to know that you bought it. You want to bypass the banks to the extent that you could use Bitcoin. Even if the Bitcoin dropped 20 or 30% while you were using it, that's the price you're willing to pay to launder your money. So I could see that maybe it could catch on. I did not, at that point in time, did not foresee that it could be so widely adopted by so many people. Certainly, I didn't foresee, major companies or investment banks getting involved. I was mistaken that this thing could ever get to such a big bubble. I mean, I appreciated what it was trying to do as a hard money guy, as an Austrian, as a libertarian. I appreciated it. I just was more focused on the underlying flaws that would ultimately be its undoing, rather than saying, you know what, maybe it'll work long enough that I can make some money on it, right? And I also knew that if I bought it, and I thought about it, I said, if I buy it, I can't tell anybody I bought it, because I would feel bad about buying it and then encouraging other people to buy it, simply because that would benefit me as somebody who already owned it. So, because I knew how illiquid it was. I was like, I can't really buy this and then tell people to buy it. I mean, that's too self-serving. I would have to just buy it and keep quiet about it. But ultimately, I didn't do it. And then eventually it went way up. And then by the time I thought about it again as just like a gamble, right? Because I still, to this day, know that it's going to crash. But when it was 200, 300, 400 back then, and it had been there for like a year or two, it went to 1,000 and then it pulled back down. Just looking at the chart of it, I was like, this thing could have another big run. But I just couldn't get over the hump. Look, I didn't want to buy it at a few dollars. I'm not going to buy it at 100 times what I didn't want to buy it at. And so just, I didn't participate. And then, of course, it ran up, to 20,000. And, then it pulled back. Then it ran up to 65,000. But, since then, I haven't thought about buying it at all. I mean, I did think about it, and I didn't do it, but it was a few hundred. As a gamble, just a gamble. I never believed that it would work. But now it doesn't even, I wouldn't even consider buying it now. I mean, now it's all, as far as I'm concerned, it's all risk. I mean, I think the upside is limited, and the downside is huge. And there's so many other places that I could put money where it's the reverse that's true, where the upside is enormous, and I think my downside is limited.
Well, I think you can agree that there are some very, very smart people who are in the Bitcoin space and have a lot of conviction in it. And I'm just kind of curious, because one of the things I love about you is your beliefs are so rooted in just history, and you're very well read. So like, how much have you gone down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin? Like, did you read the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean? Because a lot of the principles match right up with all the things you believe in with hard money.
I read Saifedean's book. I've done interviews with Saifedean. I read the white paper. I know a lot more about Bitcoin